All signs pointed to this being the Baltimore Ravens' year. The NFL tipped their hand with the Super Bowl logo colors, after all. Because, if you're leading some sort of billion-dollar scripted conspiracy, you'd naturally leave behind hints for people to piece together. But for real, there are plenty of things that went Baltimore's way this season. The offense came out swinging under new OC Todd Monken. The defense was as dominant as ever behind Mike Macdonald. Cincinnati was all but knocked out of contention by an injury-riddled Joe Burrow. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs took out Josh Allen and the Bills, while the Ravens only had to go through the Houston Texans, led by a good but still rookie quarterback in CJ Stroud. And Lamar Jackson put together another incredible regular season on his way to what will likely be his second MVP. And while I don't believe in the Super Bowl logo color theory, I do believe that the league is extremely happy that Taylor Swift is now much more likely to make an appearance in Las Vegas, flight from Japan permitting, of course. But it seemed like the NFL didn't need a script to make that happen. No, the Ravens did it to themselves. In this video, we'll break down a bit about what the Chiefs did, how Lamar Jackson held onto the ball for too long, and Todd Monken's bizarre plan for the AFC Championship game. There were so many ways the championship game could have gone for Lamar, but this was not one I expected. If you had told me he literally caught one of his own passes for 13 yards, I would have assumed this was just one of a bunch of other crazy highlights on Baltimore's way to a big win. Instead, this play will fade into obscurity, while his pass to Isaiah Likely into triple coverage will be burned into our brains. The mistake effectively ended the game. It had everyone wondering what the hell Jackson was seeing, and for those of us that saw the alternate angle of Likely waving his hand like he's open, we were left asking the young tight end one simple question: who do you think you are? On the day, Jackson went 20 for 37 for 272 yards, a touchdown, that interception, 4 sacks, and a lost fumble. PFF graded it as his worst performance of the year. Watching it, something just seems so off about him and the Ravens offense. I saw some tweets saying that it felt like Baltimore was trying to prove Lamar Jackson was a pocket passer as opposed to lean into his strengths and follow the flow of the game. And it's honestly hard to disagree. While Lamar naturally has a higher time to throw than other quarterbacks, he clocked in at 3.65 seconds per pass in his final game of the year, a decent notch above his 3.21 average on the season. To my eye, it seemed like he was trying too hard to hit the home run pass, rather than just take what's there or ditching a bad situation to use his legs for an automatic 10 to 15 yards. Let's dive a little bit more into Jackson's day by taking a closer look at what might have been considered his best play: a 30-yard touchdown to Zay Flowers toward the end of the first quarter. Kansas City comes out with 5 guys on the line with quarters coverage behind it. On this play, like they have all season, the Chiefs dial up a unique blitz package. Here, they use simulated pressure in the middle and an extra pass rusher coming from the slot corner. By being creative with their defensive fronts, they muddy up Jackson's ability to read where the blitz is coming from post-snap. Because the corner is rushing in, the space behind him will be free, and it's exactly where Flowers' route initially goes. Only Jackson doesn't seem to clock it as he's looking downfield. This sets up a chain reaction where Gus Edwards is then forced to hold his block for too long against the linebacker, who eventually breaks away and nearly sacks Jackson before he can get a throw off. Granted, Jackson gets out of this and extends the play like he's so good at doing, and Flowers goes freelance to get available for his quarterback and make a great catch in the end zone to give the Ravens the most momentum they had all day. The reason I think Flowers' choice works so well here is because of how the Chiefs seem to be focused on locking down the middle of the field in the second level behind their front. In this instance, check out how linebacker Nick Bolton carries Mark Andrews cutting through his section of the field to the secondary, and then reroutes back to the middle to pick up Flowers. The plan backfires on KC here due to all the time Jackson creates for himself, but it turned out to be the right choice for them overall. When we look at Jackson's pass chart, we see that he completed no passes to this intermediate part of the field and had only 2 attempts here, making up only 5.4% of his targets against the Chiefs. Over the regular season, this section of the field made up 11.5% of his total targets, and he completed 69.3% of these passes. The Chiefs took away one of Jackson's favorite spots of the field with a combination of pressure and coverage, which I think added to the indecision we saw from him throughout the day. Then again, it wasn't all on Lamar. The offensive game plan designed by Todd Monken and staff put more pressure on Jackson in the biggest game of the season than they had all year. Jackson attempted 37 passes, which would be his third highest mark of 2023, but he also did so in just 22 minutes of possession time. Compare this to when he threw 38 against the Steelers in 30 minutes, or 43 against the Rams in 27 minutes in overtime. One of the big stats going around was how Baltimore's running backs, in Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, combined for just 6 carries all day, a far cry away from the usual 17 between them. And while Lamar did help a bit with his legs, it all culminated in their lowest rushing total of the year at just 81 yards. This was one of the league's best offenses, and it was built around the run. Jackson showed tons of improvement as a passer, sure, but the Ravens' greatest strength was on the ground, ranking first in yards and attempts and fourth in rushing touchdowns. Warren Sharp's word for it was befuddling. Days after the game, he was still wondering what the Ravens were thinking to use a pass-first game plan in the rain against an elite Steve Spagnuolo-coached number 4 pass defense. A defense that also ranked number 28 against the run, what Baltimore did best throughout the season.
For whatever reason, Todd Monken thought that they should come up with a game plan that would be pass first with Lamar in the rain against a Steve Spagnuolo coached defense, which is elite against the pass. Made absolutely no sense to me. And this is where we talk about coaching winning games.
Even more befuddling is when we look at the game they played just the week before against the Texans. Baltimore struggled in the first half and went into the break tied at 10-10, yet they never abandoned the run game. In fact, they tied their season high in rush attempts at 42. By abandoning the run against Kansas City, they tried to be a team they hadn't been all year. And when they did go to pass against the Texans, they adjusted for Houston's first half pass rush that gave them fits. Jackson began getting the ball out much quicker in the second half, while the Ravens receivers ran shorter, quicker routes that gave him outlets to avoid the pressure, simplify the reads, and just keep the chains moving. A good example of this comes between two plays, one towards the end of the second quarter and the other to start the third. In this first one, we'll see the Texans send a linebacker blitz from the defender matched up over top of Likely. When he rushes in, Likely runs a quick little hook 5 or so yards deep in front of the safety that has to come from depth to reach him. It's not a highlight play, but it is an open pass and would keep the offense on schedule. Instead, Jackson seemingly looks him off and wants to hit the bigger pass on the other side of the field. My feeling here is he thought the defense was giving him some sort of man coverage based on the look he got from the right side of the field, but the Texans defense on the left side communicates between their slot and X corners and the safety, as the slot guy will carry Flowers up to the safety and then bail out to help against the X receiver on the outside. The coverage freezes Jackson. By the time he realizes he can't throw this ball, the safety is all over Likely, and he's got to try rolling out of the pocket way too late. He's lucky he was even able to salvage an incompletion here. In the second example, though, we see the Texans send another blitz from the same side. Here, Nelson Agholor plays the role of hook route. They use some pre-snap motion to suss out zone coverage as the linebacker and corner shift over towards the middle of the field. At the snap, the corner confirms the coverage when he immediately backpedals and gives a zone turn to keep his eyes towards the line of scrimmage and Lamar. On this one, the Ravens don't play any games. Jackson gets the ball out immediately by making the simple read, and Agholor rewards him with an extra 4 yards to give them an easy 2nd and 1. Seeing these changes just a week before was what made them not adjusting against the Chiefs so bizarre to me. I think they just panicked. Patrick Mahomes and this KC defense seems to have that effect on teams. When comparing the two playoff games together, the Ravens didn't appear to give Jackson enough outlet routes for safe passes to stay in rhythm in their loss. And because Kansas City has such creative blitz packages, I think you've got to include a variety of checkdown passes in different areas to put pressure on the coverage behind this defense's greatest strength. And that just wasn't always the case. Watching this play back got me especially frustrated with what Baltimore was doing with their passing plan. Here, the Chiefs send 6 guys at Lamar, with both of the extra rushers coming from the offense's right side. That means there are now 2 defenders on that side for 3 receivers, with a linebacker trying to make his way over there to help. Jackson recognizes this, at least we can see his eyes dart over there to this area after he receives the snap. This little out route from Aguilar should be wide open as the safety has to come from depth, and the go by the X clears out space by taking the corner deep. Only it isn't an out route. Aguilar ends up also going deep, right behind Flowers, as Andrews also comes into the same space. Rather than put a ton of pressure on the coverage by spreading the receivers out to different areas and levels of the field, all of Baltimore's guys take their defenders to each other. I don't know if this was an option by Aguilar that went wrong or what, but the scheme here seems flawed. Jackson ends up having nowhere to go with the ball, as the pressure quickly finds him and drops him for a near sack. To be fair, it wasn't like the Ravens and Jackson never hit the easy checkdown pass against KC's blitz. Here's one example where Gus Edwards sneaks out of the backfield for an easy catch and run for 16 yards against a 5-man blitz. And again, check out how concerned KC's defenders are with that middle section of the field, with both guys there making it a point to get a paw on Likely. It's linebacker Nick Bolton's focus on this section that gives Edwards so much space. But too often, the Ravens and Jackson were more concerned with hitting the big play. It was like they were trying to throw a 10-point touchdown. The last play I wanted to highlight here came on 3rd and 6 in the 3rd quarter. In this one, the Chiefs only send 4 while playing a cover 2 concept behind it with essentially man coverage underneath. Jackson gets locked onto this Zay Flowers route that's coming into the middle of the field. Against a traditional zone defense, this space is likely to be open, but the Chiefs had been playing this part of the field aggressively all game. Bolton again gets his hands on Flowers to slow him down, and then plays the receiver to get in position to jump the route. In the pocket, Jackson feels the pressure and ends up throwing this ball on the run and off platform. While this is something he's typically pretty good at, this pass requires him to lead the receiver away from Bolton, but his momentum going forward seems to put this pass behind Flowers. The thing is, he's got time and space here. He doesn't need to throw this when he does, and if he had kept his eyes moving in the same direction as Flowers' route was taking him, he might have seen 2 things. 1, Ricard has more space to make a catch on this out route right at the sticks, or 2, Ricard's defender has locked onto him while Bolton has his back turned in the middle. There's an opportunity to do what Jackson does best and take over this down with his legs, so long as he can wiggle out of the traffic around him. Instead, it's a forced pass to a part of the field the Chiefs locked down, and yet another Ravens drive was stalled in their territory. It was the story of the game. Maybe it's cliche to say, but the moment just seemed too big for Baltimore. Whether it was their 3 turnovers, the penalties, abandonment of the run game, or lack of adjustments in the pass game, they fumbled what might end up being their best chance to get to a Super Bowl with this core. Lamar Jackson will no doubt take the brunt of the disappointment. He's a fantastic quarterback with tons of talent in so many areas, and I believe he's a better passer than he often gets credit for. But even after a year of so much development and flash, it feels like he's starting 2024 from zero. Those same "he's just a running back" trolls will rear their ugly heads, and he'll have to prove them wrong all over again. It's not fair, but that's the NFL. Either way, it'll feel pretty awkward when he wins his 2nd MVP for a season that ended like this. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please remember to give it a like if you did enjoy it, and consider subscribing to Football Doesn't Matter so you can catch the next one. Thanks. Bye.